Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear you. So welcome to Waste-Wise Education webinar, and thank you very much for joining us today. I am Shiho from Japan, and I'm working for the UN Habitat, and I will be a moderator of this webinar today. Also, today we have some speakers from different organizations, so I hope you can enjoy this opportunity with us. And then, first of all, the topic of this webinar is Waste-Wise Education, which is a program under the UN Habitat Waste Management Initiatives, which is Waste-Wise Cities and African Clean Cities platform. Also, I would like to add one more thing, that this webinar is hosted by Urban Pathways by Wuppertal Institute from Germany. So before starting, let me introduce a bit more about Waste-Wise Cities and African Clean Cities platform. So Waste-Wise Cities was launched in 2018 with the call to action to cities and local governments to tackle the global waste management crisis, and also supports the people in moving towards a circular economy by requesting them to commit 12 key principles that you can see now on the screen. And also, Waste-Wise Cities aims to support cities and local governments in achieving the SDGs and implementing the new urban agenda. At the moment, we have almost 200 member cities and over 30 affiliates from all over the world. And then the next is African Clean Cities platform. And this is the African Clean Cities platform has the same mission as Waste-Wise Cities through focusing on the African continent with the aim to realize clean and healthy countries and cities in Africa by 2030. Also, African Clean Cities platform was it was established in 2017 by the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, the United Nations Environment Program, and the City of Yokohama and UN Habitat. At the moment, 65 cities and 37 countries in Africa are participating in this platform. So this is the brief introduction about Waste-Wise Cities and the African Clean Cities platform. Now let's look at this table, which is today's agenda. So basically, this webinar aims at not only providing practical information, but also exploring an effective approach that can be applied for business and social sectors. So for this, in the first part, which is keynote speech with the general aspect, will be provided by Ms. Kadri from Let's Do It Foundation. She will give us examples that how to maximize educational impacts on business and social activities, and also demonstrate actual cases to provide us some tips. Yeah, and then after that, in the second part, we are going to look at the theory of the environmental education through the educational guidebook produced by African Clean Cities platform. So for this part, Mr. Tatsuro, who from JICA, will make a presentation following the contents of the guidebook, including his great experience in Sudan. And then lastly, we will have two best practices. So these best practices were collected and selected by UN Habitat last year, and those will be, all of the best practices will be on our website soon. But today, we would like to introduce following two practices, which is, for one, the case from Kenya. And for this, Mr. Gabriel will tell us about the program of Wildlife Clubs of Kenya. And then later, Ms. Preeti and Ms. Karuna from Nepal will introduce their program of Zero Waste at School. And at the end of this webinar, we can have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please write down your questions in the box, in the question box. Maybe you can find the question box on the right side of your screen. So not for the chat box, but please write down in question box. Yes, so now let's move on the next keynote speech. Ms. Kadri, are you ready for your presentation? Maybe yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, great. So
okay,
now
great.
is yours. Yeah.
You can see my screen, right? Can you see my screen? Okay, great. Just wanna hide myself for some reason. Okay, yeah. So welcome everybody from my side as well. I'm Kadri Kalla from Let's Do It Foundation. I put a little short in the title here just to fit it in. So basically, I will be speaking about how to create engaging educational activities. First, really briefly, who we are, Let's Do It Foundation. We are based in Estonia. It's a tiny country next to Finland and Russia in the north of Europe. We have a very snowy weather currently outside and more than -10 degrees. We do work in Estonia, but we also do work globally, especially when it comes to education and capacity building. We are the initiator of Let's Do It movement, which has now spread, I think, more than 130 countries in all over the world. And we are the initiator also of the World Cleanup Day, which at first was 2018, and now it's happening every year. We as a foundation currently more focused now on empowering and enabling people and organizations to thrive. So that's why also our focus is on capacity building. And on thematic wise, we work on circular economy and zero waste. And we do this by more or less like 4 directions, which is training programs, which is my main work line. We also do keynote speeches. We have a program dedicated really to cities on how to make the city waste management better, and accelerators, which are more targeted maybe to social enterprises and getting some new initiatives started. Having said that, let's get to the topic now. So when we think about education, what our main goal is that when we engage with our students, other people, we want the learners we want them to start thinking in a new way, and we want to act upon it. We want change to happen. And that, of course, means that the change will have to happen first in our heads of how our thoughts are organized. So this is just a setup of why we actually do education and what the education has to achieve. And first, like the first step now is that the one who talks is the one who learns. I know I'm mostly talking here now, and in this webinar setting, it's US educators also probably know that in this Zoom and online era, it's much more difficult to get to interact with your students. But I want to just have a try in this limited capacity. So we have a poll for you with 2 questions. So Adriana, can you now launch the first poll question? So I just ask you to pick one option of the question. If you think about the education that you're organizing, what is the main concern or main thing that you focus? If you focus on other things, just try to pick one which would be most suitable for you if you're organizing an educational activity. And yes, Shiho can then show me when we have the answers, because I cannot see it from my screen.
Yes. Yes, so the results showed up. So the first one, how to pass all the needed material to students, is 0%. And the next one, how to make the lesson fun, is 42%. And then the last one, how to connect the material with students' existing knowledge, is 58%. Yep.
Okay, great to know. And also now let's share the second question, which is a simple yes and no question. So Adriana, if you can put that up as well. So this is a simple one. If you think about yourself as a learner, is it okay, or should you be confused or not? Is confusion good or bad if you're learning?
So now we can see the results. This is very interesting. So yes, 50% and no 50%.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay, so this was my, I don't know if you can see my screen because I'm, okay, yes. So yeah, so like I said, the one who talks is the one who learns. So that was my attempt to get you a bit talking and get to know what you are thinking about things. But then this is one of the, maybe the things to remember is that we as teachers always tend to be the ones talking the most. But that just means that we are repeating the things in our head and we remember it better. But it's the students who should be talking and doing things. So coming to the do your responses, the first question is, or actually the second question, when you had the yes and no, some of you thought it's okay to be confused, some that no. Learning and how it works in our brain is sometimes quite surprising. So when we are learning new things, which means that something completely new is coming into our brain and into our awareness, this actually is creating confusion, and that's okay, because that actually means that we are coming into contact with new things that we didn't know before. Because this is a good sign, because this means that changes are happening with the existing knowledge that's already stored in our brain. Now, of course, the confusion can go into different directions, and you know, confusion that's not being supported is not very good. So it's the teacher's role is to direct that confusion. So we create the confusion of things that we don't know yet, and then as a teacher we can direct it, like reply to the questions that students have, ask them questions, what was confusing, explain it in a better way. So but creating that confusion is actually the first step, or it's a good sign that something is happening with the learners. But this also means is that with the first question, when you said that 42% of you thought that we should make the lessons also really fun. It's not something that we should make them not fun, but making students just enjoy themselves and have fun is maybe not the main idea, because learning should be a bit hard and difficult, because change is difficult. We all know that changing our habits or changing things, it's always come with just a little bit of pain, because change is difficult. Our brain has to reorganize things in our head, and that comes with a bit difficulty. So only fun and easy things means that we are not learning. We are enjoying ourselves, we are relaxing, which is also important. But just having fun usually actually means that there is no effort in the brain and we are not learning new things. So this is also maybe something to keep in mind. Another thing is that most of you, like 58%, thought that it's really important to connect with the students' pre-existing knowledge, and this is maybe one of the key things, because we need to ask the students how they think about things, what do they care about, And I have this this sticky note image here because I think it's a really good example of we only the knowledge that we can stick into something in our head that's already there will stay there. So as educators, I would say that it's our task to get this the sticky strip part of the sticky note and find that part to make it stick, because otherwise, if you just have a piece of paper and you try to put it on a wall, it just falls off. So it's asking, the questions that they already know about and seeing what their interests are. The sort of, maybe the good thing about waste is that the way we can connect it with almost anything. If we think about sustainable development goals, all of them can be connected to waste somehow. If you think about health, about sustainable consumption, if you talk about cities, if you talk about your neighborhood environment, especially with kids, then we can talk about, what you like about your neighborhood. So waste is kind of an easy thing to connect it to what the students care about. And it's also important to ask them what they already know, is because then we can identify what are maybe the false information or the false knowledge and false beliefs that they have, so we can correct it. So this is also where my I tried a little bit do with the test to see what are your existing beliefs with the small poll. But yeah, ideally you would do it much more, and I would say that it's not so much us showing and telling, but letting the students show and tell. And even, if you talk about maybe showing images or pictures or some kind of graphs, it's not showing them, but asking them to deconstruct it themselves. If you think about maybe the circular economy model, it's a very complicated thing. Don't show the picture, just ask them to think how they imagine in their heads how it would be. So yeah, getting the students active is the most important thing, I would say. Just an example of how we can also maybe check what are the understandings of our learners. We all know the R's. There are different versions of it. I'm using here the reduce, reuse, recycle, and redesign. And one of the examples that we use is that, okay, we have the concepts, but what do they actually mean? So this is an exercise that the students can do is, okay, show examples with each of these words. How are they put into practice in your community, and how you can see what can be done better and how they could be put into practice in the future. And here you usually see that there is some confusion, in the sense that, for example, with redesign, people often confuse it with downcycling, because it's a new term, it's complicated. So then it offers us the opportunity to correct these concepts. And for example, we can show that, by reducing, we mean by using less things, which also is similar to refusing. It's like not needing a straw in your drink. By reusing, we mean using the same item again, which can be also repairing, like having sharing clothes in your family and passing them on to your friends or other people, like baby clothes is a good example. And recycling is something that needs a technology when we use a material or parts for it again. And then we can also say that, we should first reduce what we can, and what we cannot reduce, we can reuse. And what we cannot reduce and reuse, we should see if it's recyclable. And if we cannot do anything with it, then the things should be redesigned. So redesign is not making something out of waste or waste items. It means actually creating a new system or design, which usually is on an industrial level. An example is the single-use baby diapers. In many parts of the world, there are now reuse systems where there are cloth diapers, offering sometimes also even washing services for them. So by this way, we can, first asking the students how they understand the things, and then explaining, and then we can ask more questions. And for example, asking them to adopt these principles in a new context to check again if the concepts were changed. I'm going to just check briefly the time. And yeah, then maybe the second biggest part is also when we think about the learning environment. In what situation do we learn new things? And this is maybe also relevant when you think about the COVID-19 situation, which put people into very different difficult situations worldwide. So where we see is that it's the comfort zone. This is the part where you're having fun. It's like games and it's very easy. This is really important for us to rest and recharge ourselves and relax. But when we talk about learning wise, this is also the part where we feel bored. So often students who in a classroom, let's say, they are like joking around and they seem bored, which means that they don't have enough challenge to learn. So this means that we actually the bigger learning is when you have, I would put here also mental pressure. So it's more challenging. So the stretch zone is the part where we learn. It's where we take new challenges, where we also have new experiences. There's some risk, but there's also success. So it's the plane where the brain feels a little bit, let's say, like a little bit pain, or has a bit like it has to change the brain cells in our mind. And then we have the panic zone, which means that if the pressure, if the tasks are too difficult, then we feel overwhelmed. We are stupid. We don't know how to do things. It's complicated, and I think that the COVID situation is maybe a good example here, because people felt like they were so much out of their comfort zone. They were in the panic zone, and they couldn't learn anything new because they were in their, let's say, survival mode. And this is also a good thing to remember, that for students we need to put them into the stretch zone where they have challenges. But this is also, it could be very different for different students. So also knowing your audience and seeing where the students are. So as to sum it up, it's also important to know that so to learn, we need mental stretching. This means thinking. So the thinking has to be challenged. So giving tasks that make you think just hard enough when the answers don't come right away. So it's having to work a bit. At the same time, when we talk about the environment, it has to be comfortable in the emotional sense, so that we are feeling safe, that we don't fear the teacher, we don't fear the fellow students, and we are feeling that it's okay to make mistakes. So it's the same, it's like a contradiction in a way, that the feeling must be safe and warm, but you have to have like tasks that are a bit challenging. Maybe also then to remember in that sense that while we are doing all these educational activities with change, which would nudge our behavior into a better direction, working with our values, with the knowledge, with the beliefs, we also have to remember that there's a world outside, which also has to be changed. So in designing educational activity is also not enough, because we need also the environment around us. But not to be too discouraging, it is possible, and this is just a nice example from Philippines. But also shows that cleanup actions can also make a difference. This is a community which was trashed and it was not nice, and you can see that people didn't really care about it, and it was changed into a lovely community garden. So this is something that that can be done, and this way we can change both the mind of the people, but also our environment. Actually, for me, it's the final thing is that to remember that the one who talks, the one who asks, the one who deconstructs, the one who practices is the one who learns. And we have now our final poll questions. So Adriana, if you can launch it. I think I already maybe know what you're going to reply, but let's try it anyway. So the final question. So this is just the wrap up my talk of what is the most important thing to aim for when we are creating educational activities.
Okay, now we got the results.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first one is 10%, present all the important info on the topic. And the second one, activate the brain of the learner, is 80%. And then the last one, make the learners laugh and have fun, is 10%.
Yeah, so thanks for that. So yeah, so the main, the most important thing is, okay, just to show, sorry, go back to my, so the main aim when we do an educational activity is to make sure that the learner's brain is active, that changes are happening in their brain. This doesn't mean that, of course, things can be fun as well. Like we said, that we cannot big challenges all the way. At some point, we also have to have something fun for them to relax and then to take on the challenging tasks again. And of course, as we know that as teachers also presenting, the important knowledge is information is also important. But with the sticky note, if you don't find the sticky part, you can present all the knowledge that you want, but it will just fall off and not actually get to the students. So this is all from my part. I thank you for listening. I hope you found some new ways to think about education. I encourage you to follow our website. You can subscribe to our newsletter of the activities that we do. And yeah, this is all from my part. So I don't know if you have some time for questions now or we do them later. I'm giving it back to Shiho now. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kadri. That was really fantastic and insightful presentation. Thank you. So for the participants, again, if you have any questions, please write down your question in the question box, not in the chat box. Please write down your question in question box. And then at the end of this webinar, we can go through all of the questions as much as possible. Okay, let's move on the next one, which is the introduction of educational guidebook of African Clean Speech Platform. So, Mr. Tatsuro Mori-san, are you ready?
Thank you for introduction, Ms. Shiho. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, welcome to my presentation. I introduce a guidebook developed by Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. JICA developed a guidebook for environmental education on solid waste management in Africa in August 2019. This guidebook was developed for officials in waste sector in African country based on the experience of Japanese experts and JICA volunteer among with the waste sector. Their experience are useful information for those working on waste issue. Today, I will introduce you to this guidebook so that you try to use after this presentation. By the way, I am Tatsuro Mori from JICA Headquarters Global Environmental Department. Now I'm working for JICA, but I used to work in Sudan as a JICA volunteer on waste issue. I would like to explain about the guidebook based on my experience as a JICA volunteer. Today's agenda is shown. Okay, next slide. As you know, among with the rapid economic growth and the rise urban population, many African cities experienced a significant increase in amount of waste. At the same time, they are facing challenges of unsanitary living conditions caused by inappropriate waste management, including insufficient collection service. This guidebook is designed for those who challenge for those waste issues. This guidebook has been created assuming an audience mainly comprising officials in municipality and educational institution engaged in environmental education and community awareness raising in waste management sector in Africa. It is meant to be used manual or resource guide in developing and implementing education and awareness program. This guidebook structured for officials to lead among and compare to their own situation, describing an educational awareness program step by step from preparation through to its implementation and monitoring. It is also structured to help the leader understand the PDCA cycle, a plan, do, check, action, as a framework for project management. The contents of the guidebook are as shown. Today, I'll summarize the contents of guidebook. The first chapter of the guidebook describes the situation in African countries and environmental education before building the program. I believed that all participants are familiar with the situation in African countries. However, this chapter is also described the history of environmental education in Japan, which I would like to participate to lead as well. The important part of the the important part of this chapter is figure 1 on this slide. The circumstance of waste management depend on the level of development of the country. So the first step is identify what stage your country is in and define objectives. Once you have set your objectives, it's time to prepare your program. Chapter 2 explains the item to be checked for resources and issue analysis and stakeholder analysis. I don't have enough time to explain all the items, but I will briefly explain the issue analysis. Please see figure 2. Here is the issue analysis on residents throw away rubbish in arbitrarily decided location. The blue square contains is problem, which is a cost at the bottom and the effect at the top. Using the method, you can visualize the problems from cost to effect and find issues that need to be resolved. By visualizing, you can clarify the problem and share it with your colleagues. Chapter 3 explains some points to keep in mind when building the program. A particularly important point summarized in the slide. The figure 3 shown the point to keep in mind from behavior change to problem solving. Even if a solution is clear and encourage people to change their behavior, it is meaningless without a waste management system. When the person in charge decides on the solution, at the same time, the person also needs to prepare a waste management system. The following table describes the elements that need to be included in the program. The guidebook indicates that those 7 elements are effective in building programs. Depending on the purpose and the target on your program, you consider to include which elements. Next is figure 4, showing the specific process of program formulation. As indicated in the figure number 4, it is important to identify the resources first. Resources have a great impact on feasibility. First, check your resources and then build your program. Generally, environmental education programs are designed to process through the stage of introduction, expansion, reflection, and summary. Please check the guidebook for more information on this point. Chapter 4 is indicator implementing environmental education program. It is not difficult to implement the program if you are well prepared. The important point is this chapter is about a review. Review are very important to improve a program. So we often see officials who do not review and improve their programs after they have been implemented, but it is big mistake. It is very difficult to build a perfect program, so a review and improvements are necessary to make a program more complete. During the review process, the key indicators are number 1 and 2. Please refer to this page for instructions for how to review. The guidebook contents indicate programs conducted by the JICA volunteer and the educational materials they created. I'm sure some of those materials will be helpful to you. Please refer to them and create your own programs. And please let us know when you implement your programs. Finally, I would like to introduce my waste management project in Sudan. I had working in Sudan from 2017 to 2019 as a JICA volunteer. At the time, Khartoum, the capital city of Sudan, had no rule for disposing household waste, and the city was unsanitary. For the above reason, my counterpart and I developed a rule for waste management that we created together with the residents. When developing the rule, we focused on the creating a waste management system and encourage simple behavior change. When we hold a workshop for residents. As a result, we developed a waste management project, fixed time, fixed point collection system with residents. Best for our project as indicated. The first is mutual understanding is important. Waste management involves many people in variety position. It is important that you get know each one of their ideas. Organizations and understand each other has great power. Second is fundamental problem is hidden. As we saw in problem 3 analysis, real problem is invisible. The person in charge for waste management need to find out what is causing the problem. Last item is information exchange is essential. This item is a source of all of the above item. It is impossible for you to figure out all problems on your own. Any hints are hidden in various ideas. Okay, this is last slide. Please check our website. The guidebook can be downloaded free of charge from African Clean City Platform website. And please check it, and please check this URL. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Thank you very much for the great presentation and the introduction of this guidebook, Mr. Mori. So I think even though the title of this guidebook says in Africa, I think this guidebook can be a help of the development of educational activities or program in other regions such as Middle East, Southeast Asia, even Latin America, as the theory is really general thing. And also the cases of the problem is similar. Yeah. So again, thank you very much for the wonderful presentations. So let's move on to the next one. The next part is the introduction of best practices. So the first case is from Kenya, and for this, Mr. Gabriel from Wildlife Clubs of Kenya will make a presentation for us. Gabriel, floor is yours. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you. So now I'm sharing your presentation.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Slideshow?
Yeah, sorry. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So when I'm done, I will tell you next. Okay. So welcome to the presentation, and I will brief you about the project Shule PET Take-Back Scheme. Now, I work for the Wildlife Clubs of Kenya, and maybe just to share brief information, the Wildlife Clubs of Kenya is a non-governmental, non-profit conservation education organization that educates and involves the Kenya school youth on wildlife conservation. So on the slide on the screen, you can see that small bottle, an empty PET bottle, polyethylene droplet. That is the name. But can you imagine a very empowered, skillful, and proactive youthful generation? Young men and women who are able to make informed decisions, choices, and actions as regards waste management. Well, that is what we envision in this particular project, which we started on the 1st of February 2019. So our purpose is to educate and involve the Kenyans youth in sustainable management of the PET plastic bottles, and in essence, to inculcate the right waste management knowledge, practices, and values at the right age, building the tomorrow's responsible population today. I think this is a key point as regards waste management education. Next. Now on the screen, you can see the different stakeholders who are part of this initiative. We brought together partners. Wildlife Clubs of Kenya was the implementer, but we had the Kenya Association of Manufacturers supporting this. So we are talking about extended producer responsibilities, where entities, corporate bodies join hands to address this particular problem. We were targeting 19 schools within Nairobi City, and then the partners included the Minister of Education. We had the recycler, Mr. Green Africa, the National Environment Body here in Kenya, and Tech Intellilight Technology Limited. So in essence, this was a multi-stakeholder approach. Next, please. Next. Now, before they start, we thought it wise to do a baseline survey, because we are talking of behavior change. We are talking of gauging knowledge, gauging value shift. So we went ahead and did gather the perceptions of the children, their understanding about waste management, about the PET plastic bottles. Next. You know, we were also able to get to know the state of solid waste management in Nairobi City. And according to the National Environment Body here in Kenya, 2014 report, the city produces 2,400 tons of waste per day, out of which 14% are basically plastic waste. So we were also keen on the gaps in the curriculum. How can teachers be able to incorporate aspects of waste management, of PET management into the curriculum? Next, please. So our first intervention here was the outreach education program, and our aim was to build knowledge, skills, and interest amongst the young people. Now, this is very instrumental for any waste management education program, to make the young people understand that our social, our economic, our ecological, and political well-being is dependent on a healthy environment. So our first consideration was the target audience, children between 12 and 17 years old. Now, the entry point we made here were the schools, with over 78% of Kenya's population being the youth aged below 34 years. So we were keen on reaching to the young people through the schools. Now, in the implementation approach, the main thing we were focusing on was action learning, thematic presentations, but again, following a cycle of improvement whereby we design the content, we deliver it in a very thematic, interactive, and engaging way, interesting way for the kids also to learn, and then a moment of pausing, reflecting, evaluating, then redesign again, and you move on to the next cycle of the program. Next, please. Now, we also did a bit of education materials development, just basic posters again, and also stickers that we distributed to the children. You know, do it right, recycle right. So we use these as eco codes. So you will have in a school a kind of a talking compound that, you know, gives information about waste management and the PET plastics conservation. Let's go, please. Next. Well, another consideration was training the teachers, because they spend most of their time with the kids. Actually, they mold the values of these children. But the question is, how can they reorient their teaching methods so that they can use the action learning centers on waste management for teaching subjects like pollution in grade 4, for example. So the idea here was, how do we incorporate aspects of waste management into the school curriculum? and now teachers taking the lead in this particular practice. So any waste management education program is also well, programmed, well kind of efficient if it incorporates training of teachers in the school. We were able to train 62 teachers. Next, please. So, having done the bit of building knowledge, creating understanding, another important point for waste management education and for conservation educators is to put in place a group that is able to transform the knowledge and ideas gained into actions for long-term purpose. And in our case, we were able to bring together children and teachers who are passionate in the form of a school wildlife club. Next. And still on building the sustainable structures, it's always important for any waste management education program to think of the long term, because we are talking of behavior change, knowledge, skills, and you will need about 6 months to be able to gauge the transformation in terms of knowledge and skills. You will need about 3 to 9 months to measure the behavior change. You will need about 6 to 12 months to be able to gauge the change in attitudes and values. And therefore, long-term mentorship is very important. On the screen there, you can see actions and innovation. And this is very critical and important element of any environmental education, participation. And for us, we did this in 3 parts. First, we were able to design and distribute bins to the 19 schools, trying to solve this problem, whereby children are able to dispose plastics. I was interested because the same bin also serves the local community. So you will have a child in the morning coming to the school with 4 plastics that were used by mom and dad yesterday, So we're solving the problem even with the community. And by March 2020, we had gathered 1,624.9 kilograms for recycling at the factory. These are PET plastics that would have otherwise ended up into the environment. But what is equally important here was the involvement of the learners, them driving the process, So trying to provide a sustainable solution to the waste management problem here. Next, please. And now kids are always very curious, and you tell them, okay, we are taking the PET plastic bottles for recycling. They want to see how the process happens. So we had to expose, or rather share with them, illustrate what happens in the factory, where the PET bottle is sliced or broken down into flakes, and then converted into pellets, which are used to make the products, to make the buttons of my shirt, also to make products like the 100 recycled plastic products on the screen, which you were able to show them. So all about exposing the children, a learning process for them. Next, please. And then the second part of action and participation is where we let the kids drive the process. Student-centered driven initiative. We want them to identify and examine the environmental problem. We wanted them to be able to apply knowledge and skills in finding solutions to this waste management issue of PET, trying to create the high order thinking from knowledge, and remembrance to understanding, to application there, to analyzing, evaluating, and creating, trying to prepare the children to be responsible citizens in the future. I'm sorry, I was to share a video of these kids participating. Maybe I will find a way of doing that. But you can see the photos over there. In the first case, the kids were able to use the used PET bottles to create flower pots, beautification, decoration. And the beauty here is that it is them who did this. And in the second photo, you can see the children who came up with the idea of developing drip irrigation, using the bottles now to design a tool for drip irrigation. And this is in a school that relies on its vegetable garden for the feeding program. And you can see this method being able now to nourish the entire school. And remember, the PET bottles are much safer. The chemical used is also safe, so it doesn't in any way cause harm to the plants. Now, on the third photo down there, you will see a long, kind of a big structure. Now, that is a wall. And what we did was to use the bottles with the kids to construct a wall, in essence, whereby we'll find that the bottles are reused, for reinforcing and doing the wall in the school. So these and other practices, other initiatives that the kids managed to come up with. I'm happy because it is them who developed these initiatives. Thank you. Next, please. Now, another initiative under participation, in the later stages of the project, we joined hands with Techie IntelliLite technology and designed an app, an app that we also were able to upload on Google Play Store. On the left side of the slide, you can see a screenshot of the app and the icons there. Now, this app was instrumental in reinforcing, in helping the collection and the cycling of plastics. How does it work? You can see there, it has 4 main accounts. Consumer account, these are the schools who collect the bottles. Agent account, now these are people who empty the bottles from the schools. They gather the bottles from the bin. And then we have transport account. This was Mr. Green Africa, the recycler, because they now get the bottles from the agent account, from the agents to the factory for recycling. And lastly, the management account was the Wildlife Clubs of Kenya and Techie IntelliLite, and it was mainly to monitor. For example, how this works. A school A has its bin full. They want it to be empty. So they will search using the app. They will trace for an agent, the nearest agent. Hey, agent C, could you come and empty my bin? And he will do the same. Transport account, transporter B, once now he is looking for a volume that is viable for him to collect and deliver to the factory. He will use the app and trace which agent has the viable volume of plastics for me to go, and collect to the factory. Very, very important. So you will see, personally, I was able to share nice, informative education information through the education icon, the link over there, to create a forum again with the children and also with the teachers to learn together. Remember, this is an app, and it was more practical using it on a phone. And maybe this was a limitation because only the teacher, the patron of the Wildlife Club, was able to use this app. Next, please. So the PET bottle tracker was able to enhance collection and also information sharing. My last slide here is about an incentive. We wanted to create kind of an interest in learning, So we came up with a way of combining PET waste management with wildlife ecology trips for the children. It was a full sponsored program. And in the morning with our bus, we will pick a school, go to the giraffe center, and the kids learn about the endangered giraffe, the Rothschild giraffe, having fun. And then we stop at the David Sherrick Elephant Orphanage, and the kids see the orphan baby elephants, and then they stop at our headquarters at the offices. We give them lunch, and we wind up our day by stopping, visiting the Kenya Wildlife Service orphanage, you know. So it was so fun for the children to learn these, you know, trying to create a way of, interesting way of outdoor learning, and for them to be able to compare and contrast the polluted environment in the towns and these pristine wildlife habitats. Next, please. You know, so creating exciting and engaging way of learning with the children. We were able also to organize countrywide cleanup events with the photo you can see there. Next slide. So what's next? The way forward for us, we are planning to extend this program to other major cities here in Kenya, Mombasa, Nakuru, and Kisumu. There are my contacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Your great presentation. Sorry, my screen is a bit, okay. So that was really great presentation. I understand that you are providing experience-based education, but also really knowledge for lessons on the ground for all age group, the student at school. And also what makes your program innovative is in the collaboration with the practice with technology through other stakeholders. This is a good point, I think. Thank you very much. So for the, we have, this is the last session for us. Next one is best practices from Nepal. So Miss Preeti and Miss Karuna, floor is yours.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Namaste. I'm Karuna Thapa from Cleanup Nepal, and I have been working with Cleanup Nepal for Zero Waste at Schools program. Today, I'll be introducing you with some of the good practices we have been doing in Zero Waste at Schools program. Do I need to share my webcam, or I can just cancel it? Okay. So to continue, Zero Waste at Schools program is initiated by Cleanup Nepal in 2017, where we piloted with 4 government schools here in Nepal. And here we work with many government schools with the aim of educating students, teachers, and staff on sustainable waste management practices. So moving on to objectives, we want to aware students, teachers, and staff on the need of sustainable waste management practices. Also to improve the waste management at schools through waste segregation and reduced littering. And the third objective of the program is to bring positive behavioral changes among students, teachers, and staff in waste management practices. So this program is based on 5 modules where we introduce about the waste and different waste practices to the students. Then we talk about the waste segregation and also 3R, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle. And then we also teach them about the composting, where we train students to compost their organic waste which they generate in school, and we also encourage them to initiate gardening practices. And finally, we aware them about the impacts, harmful impacts of waste burning. Now moving on, the program outline. We first approach the school and plan the whole activities. We plan the timeline. We sit with the teachers and plan whole activities and timeline for a whole academic year, doing various activities and a series of follow-ups. Not only awareing them about different waste practices, but we also provide options of waste disposal and connect the school with recycling companies so that they are motivated to segregate their waste. So talking about the impacts, since we started in 2017, we have reached 28 government schools here in Kathmandu, 10 private schools, where we were able to educate 2,000 plus students, 83 teachers, and 10 staff. Here we believe that the learning should be activity based, because students can learn better when we teach them with games and provide hands-on activities. So we always try to make learning engaging and fun. So we always try to do activity based learning. We conduct different competitions, we conduct upcycling workshops, awareness drama, and we engage students in cleanup activities. I have few pictures from our program. Like in the second picture, you can see students are engaged in segregation games so that they can learn about waste segregation properly. Students also learn to make eco diary utilizing the waste paper, and they also get hands-on training on composting so that they can make compost out of their waste in their school. And we also guide them in making composting and initiating gardening as well. Not only students, but we also conduct teachers and staff sessions separately so that they can have proper knowledge in waste management, and they can guide their students when we leave the school after 1 year. So we also conduct different activity based training to teachers as well. Like mentioned earlier, we provide them upcycling workshop. After they make something, after they upcycle something, we organize exhibitions. We put their products in the exhibition. They get motivated, and we also sometimes conduct inter-school competitions where students from different schools compete. They show their products, upcycled products. And like said earlier, we not only provide education, but we also emphasize on system placement. We provide them segregation system, and after providing segregation system, we connect the school with the recycling companies so that the segregated recyclables, they can sell them to the recycling companies, and they can also earn something out of waste. At the end of the program, students also engage themselves in cleanup campaigns. The students themselves conduct cleanup campaigns around the school premises, around the nearby surrounding, and students also engage in awareness raising drama. They create the theme on waste management. They go, they show the drama in schools. They move to another school to show the same awareness raising drama as well. Similarly, at the end of the session, we provide a certificate to all the students, And we also ensure that we provide all the eco-friendly prizes to the winners of the competition so that we can promote the concept of eco-friendly products in them. So these are all the activities we do in this program. That's all from my side. Now my colleague Preeti will be taking lead on further part of this program. So Adriana, can you please stop my screen and provide access to Preeti? Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so moving forward, so next is the resources. So under our Zero Wasted Schools program, we have various resources such as Toolkit or Guidebook for teachers and educators, various IEC materials, and awareness and instructional videos, which we use for effectively delivering waste management educations. So talking about our toolkit, this is our Zero Wasted Schools toolkit. So it is an educational document that is created by Cleanup Nepal to complement schools' existing curriculum on sustainable waste management in schools of Nepal. So this toolkit, it helps teachers, educators to guide their students to understand the urgency of addressing waste management issues in Nepal. And we have developed our toolkit in 3 different languages. So we already have it in English, and now we are working on our Nepali and Newa, which is one of our ethnic languages. So sooner we will be publishing it. So our toolkit, as Karuna has mentioned, it comprises of the 5 modules. So inside our toolkit, we have different activities, we have contents on our modules, and this toolkit, it is available for the teachers, educators to guide the students from grade 1 to grade 10. So in this picture, you can see 2 different IEC materials. Similarly, we have various IEC materials such as posters, stickers with regards to waste and waste practices that are used to bring awareness in among students, teachers, staffs, and our community and in our community. So the next one is our video, which is one of our instructional and awareness videos. So Andrea, can you please play the video?
Can you see the video?
Yes.
Can see.
For years, we have been haphazardly littering, burning, and dumping waste on our streets and rivers, leading to pollution. Do you know that our waste or waste-related behavior have direct impact on our public health? Yes, these are all connected to our very own actions, our everyday practices. So, what can we do to manage waste better? It begins with reforming our thinking. Stop burning waste. It leads to several health and environmental problems. Let us make an effort to reduce waste at its source. Learn to reuse things whenever possible. Always segregate your waste into organic, recyclables, and reject waste. Organic waste can be transformed into green manure. The recyclables can be collected and exchanged for money. Only the reject waste should ideally go to the landfill. Waste management is not a duty. It is a lifestyle we adopt to live a healthy life. Your actions could make the surroundings better or worse. Your choice alone can tell.
So thank you. Moving on. So in this video, we shared, and it was an awareness video where we took you along with the journey of Bhumi, where she improves her waste management behavior in herself and bring change in her community. So moving forward is distance learning. So during this pandemic, we upscaled our project to digital platform, a platform where teachers and students, they can have access to digital learning system. This Zero Waste at Schools website, it aims to help teachers and students to understand and adopt sustainable approaches to waste management once they enroll into the courses or the sessions. So we have courses for teachers and the students. So our website, this is our Zero Waste at Schools website. So our website, it includes teachers section and students section. So the teachers section, it will have TOT courses for teachers, which will be a complete course where teachers can enroll and acquire knowledge on teaching techniques. They can apply to teach their students on various modules. So next is our student section. So the student section, it is targeted for children's, and it includes three main subcomponents that are the videos for each module, activity worksheet, and quiz questions. So we aim to promote learning habits in students to bring behavioral change in them through our distance learning platform. And our learning management system, it can be assessed through the link provided here. So this is all about our Zero Waste at Schools journey. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miss Preeti and Miss Karuna. That was really fantastic presentations. And then I learned your program is really well organized and has a variety of learning opportunities as well as resources with ethnic languages. This is a good point, I think. So I hope this your impactful program can be replicated not only in Nepal but also neighboring countries and cities. Thank you very much. So I think that's all for today. And then now we can go to the Q&A sessions. Adriana, can you turn on other speakers' camera as well? Okay. So thank you very much again for all. So now we are in the Q&A session, but it seems we are a bit behind of the time schedule. So maybe 2 or 3 questions we can address now. So we have some questions from audience. Maybe so this question is for Gabriel. Gabriel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I will read this question. So to Mr. Gabriel Ngale, has the Shule PET take-back scheme also educated the students on the use of non-single-use bottles? This is the question.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I think that's a good question if I understand. Now, basically, we do educate them on the use of the non-single-use bottles as well. In our thematic programs out there, we cut across many key areas, generally on pollution, starting with environmental conservation, coming down to pollution, and then waste management now as a subject. So we also talk of the non-single-use also items. Now, here in Kenya, I think we also have a law that is in place. We have the single-use polythene bags that are basically banned. And then we also have, of course, the PET plastic bottles in the protected areas are not also allowed. So in this education program, we also touch on all those areas, all included. And I would also like to even welcome our participants to channel these questions even through my email, and we'll be able to share with them more on how we go about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And the next question is, maybe this is for Ms. Karuna and Ms. Preeti. The question is, where do you get the dustbins used to separate the waste for reduce, reuse, and recycle?
Thank you, Ms. Sihu. Actually, we contact our local vendors here in Kathmandu, and we get the waste segregation bins from them in bulk, so that we can place this dustbin in all the schools that we work with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I can see one, maybe this is a message from someone who is really exciting about Sudan context. Maybe this is a message for Mr. Mori. And then another question is from the participant from Pakistan. The question is, I have a question over the hidden problem. What are these, if you could elaborate? This is maybe for Mr. Mori or maybe Kaderi, if you can answer.
Okay, can I answer?
Yep. Please.
So the waste problem, waste fundamental problem is waste fundamental problem is individual because visualized problem is not a fundamental problem. I think so. It is important to exchange information with colleagues and residents and many title of the people. We can see the fundamental problem. This is my idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have other questions, a lot of questions, but I think it's time to close. So maybe we can also answer all of these questions after the webinar, and also all the presentations and the materials we used for this webinar, including the video, will be available after the webinar. We will send you through emails. So thank you very much for your joining in today's webinar, and for the speakers, thank you very much for your great presentations. Yeah, let's close the webinar. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, West team.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.